You're like, I'm not working without a gavel. Use this, bang, bang.
Okay, all right. If you insist. The gavel has been removed. I don't know where it went, but we're going to try to get everyone in order. It's an exciting night, a night full of honor, service, and dedication to the city of Lafayette. Welcome. All right, I'm going to bring this meeting to order and let the record reflect that all council members are present. That brings us to adoption of the agenda. I have had a request to pull item 7E from the consent calendar. Any other modifications to the agenda? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move we approve the adoption of the agenda with the exception of pulling item E from the consent.
7E.
calendar. 7E.
Well,
Okay.
the idea was we're not going to discuss it tonight.
Oh, yes. Do we need
It's a
to
very
word it?
technical term. Pulling it is very technical.
I second.
Look at that. Wow. Wonderful. I don't need it, but that's great. Okay, so do I have a motion?
And I second.
And a second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right, with that, we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will all stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity for public comments. This is a chance to speak on an item that is not on our agenda tonight, but within the purview of the city. Are there any interest people speaking on public comment? I'm assuming this is for, it is, okay.
This is public comment.
Okay, let's start with Danielle, sorry. And then Marianne Hosington.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Gallagher, and I'm at 1588 Silverdale Road. I'm here tonight to invite the City Council and the entire Lafayette community to join the Commonwealth Club. Can you hear me? Thank you. To join the Commonwealth Club, the Lafayette School District, and Lafayette Partners in Education to a stimulating panel discussion on why great public schools matter. Dr. Gloria Duffy, President and CEO of the Commonwealth Club, as well as former U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense and Acalanes grad of 1971, will facilitate a lively conversation with our Lafayette Public School alumni. Other panelists include Brett Taylor, President and Chief Product Officer of Salesforce and co-creator of Google Maps, and Alan Chin, a contemporary modern artist. This event will take place on Wednesday, November 6th at 7 p.m. at the Acalanes Performing Arts Center. This event is free, and tickets are currently available on the Commonwealth Club website. I have left flyers in the back for everyone to take, and I hope to see some of you there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher.
I've got a question.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. I think that's fantastic. Was this something that was, is this put on by LPI, or is this a group effort, or how did this come about?
It's a partnership with three partners, the Commonwealth Club, based out of San Francisco, the Lafayette School District, and Lafayette Partners in Education,
Okay.
all just wanting to bring this to the community.
Okay, great.
Councilmember Geringer, you have a question?
My understanding is that the Superintendent Whitmore and Gloria Duffy put their heads together about featuring fabulous alumni who have gone through our schools for this, and so that's how the partnership came together.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right.
Great.
All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for that. Appreciate it. Marianne Hosington, followed by Carol Reef.
I'm Marianne Hoisington from 959 Hawthorne. This item isn't on your agenda, but it's seared into each of our psyches. I'm here to talk about PG&E. I want to ask you as an entity if we could please pursue divorce from PG&E. As individuals, we have no hope. Individuals, we're useless. The PUC doesn't help us. The PUC tells PG&E, monitor yourself, and they don't. It's hopeless. I know that Alameda, some years ago, took over their own power system, and I think San Carlos or some city down the peninsula has done that. And I don't have any idea how we would do it. I know that we get most of our electrical energy from Marin Clean Energy at this point. We don't get our gas. I don't know where we'd get our gas. But maybe we as a city, or we as a La Miranda, or we as a county, perhaps we could do something. So if you wouldn't mind looking into it, I'm not asking you to do anything except see if there's a possibility, because for individuals, it's hopeless. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you
Appreciate
very much
that.
for that. Comment, Councilmember Burks?
It's my second and last comment for the night.
I don't think so.
I could not agree more. I think PG&E is a disgraced, failed institution, and so is the CPUC. So I would urge not only us to take local action, but also Sacramento and the governor to step behind, $100 a year and $250 there to actually work with the legislature to break up PG&E and to do so quickly. Because there is no end in sight, and there's absolutely no confidence in the community that they'll ever get this right. So I appreciate Ms. Hoisington coming up and saying that. Thank you.
Well, let me just comment quickly on the Bureau of Electricity in Alameda. That was a very interesting phenomena that I learned about when I worked at the Park District. They have their own electrical system. Now, of course, it doesn't do gas, but they actually generate their own electricity. But they started that at the beginning of the city's incorporation. It's been the city's process right from the beginning. So our situation here is a little different since we have a system that's in place. There are no power sources generating really a great deal of power locally. We can take a look at it, but I think probably what Councilmember Burks is indicating is more likely, that we have some way of either breaking up that entity through a large-scale project or process through the legislature, because I don't think locally we've got the ability to do our own power. But we can certainly take a look at that and see. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Carol Rife, followed by Michael Dawson.
Hi, my name is Carol Reef. I live at 753 Old Jonas Hill Road, and I am a 30-year resident. I'd like to talk about emergency communications. My husband and I were on the East Coast this last week during the outage, and we got many nixles, but we mostly got them from Moraga and Orinda. And we were in synagogue, and we kind of got pinged. We didn't mind because our family was still here. Another example of, I think, the lacking of engagement by the city of Lafayette was, I guess, the frequency and the timeliness of updates and nixle from other communities, meaning Moraga and Orinda, and yet somehow Lafayette's were not timely, I felt. Another example is we live off of Moraga Road. We got a nixle from Moraga to announce that Moraga Road would be closed, but we never had a notification from the city of Lafayette. In addition, thinking that we had no BART this past week in Lafayette, I needed to go and visit an elderly friend in San Francisco, so I drove to Orinda. Well, I got to Orinda and I found out that the closure of BART in Lafayette had been canceled. So I would like us to look at our methods of communication, particularly in moments of emergencies, because again, that kind of feeds into some of the panic that did or didn't happen in our community. And I found Nixle really, really engaging. I found communications went through emails or, social media not helpful, but Nixle was like right at my elbow on the other side of the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good comments. Any questions? Okay, Michael Dawson, followed by Jeffrey Gilman.
Hi, Michael Dawson, 711 Los Palos Drive. Good to see everybody tonight. Now that we survived the PG&E blackout debacle, I wanted to call our attention to something that we've identified in our community, in the Gas Safety Task Force, that is the highest concern that we know of. And right now, that's the exposed pipelines in Briones and in Girl Scout Camp. We had brought this up to your attention before, but just to remind everybody, we have 4 exposed pipelines in that area. Each are about 40 feet in length or longer. 3 of them are design spans. One's unintentional span that's been just exposed over time. And there are trees leaning over these. Still, even with the power event that went on with all the wind, PG&E has left the trees overhanging. There are Girl Scout troops who play right in that area. There's no fencing. It's an extremely dangerous situation, and I don't think we should let this sit. Unfortunately, PG&E has dropped the ball in communicating with us. We originally spoke with them about our concerns, and they promised us answers in writing on September 6th, September 11th, September 18th, and lastly on September 20th, each time promising they'd give us detailed answers about our concerns. The last time they said that they would have an engineering firm go and look at that span, and that was over a month ago. Just recently today, they've told us that we now can no longer talk to their engineers. We must go through one of their junior PR people to handle any of our questions. And I'm just wondering, what did they find that was such a concern that now everything has to run through a PR machine? And I think it should be a great concern to our city council as well. So I am asking that you, if you can, I humbly ask that you draft a letter to PG&E. It's a simple thing to do, to ask them to give us these answers. We need to know exactly what was in their awareness before this pipeline was brought to their attention by Lafayette residents. As a reminder, there were 3 different residents who came to us about this. We never found them. People came to us. We want to know what are the geohazard issues that they identified. They assured us that they knew what they were. What were the corrosion reports before we brought this to their attention? Why didn't they address the leaning trees? We also want to know what the results of the third-party engineering report were. They have that now. They haven't released it, and I wonder why. We also want to know what will they do if there is an explosion in that area, because it will cut off access to all the Girl Scouts in that camp. 250 girls camp in that area with one way out, and there is a manual valve in the middle of Briones Park for them to turn off the gas. So I would love us to run some drills and understand how would we get somebody out in case of an emergency. And I think we owe the community some answers. What we're lacking in PG&E is, again, no surprise, there's no transparency, and there's no accountability when we ask them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I assume there are questions. Vice Mayor Kandel.
Thank you, Michael. I've been working with Michael very closely on this. I'm the president of the Spring Hill Valley Homeowners Association as well. And so I've been having the 2 hats on, and we've been out inspecting these pipes probably weekly. We got the meeting canceled tomorrow. There was supposed to be a meeting tomorrow, and PG&E canceled it on us. And I was unaware of the change of not talking to the engineers and going through the PR people. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That is a complete strategy change. I would offer myself to help draft this letter if council would like to write one, and I will work with whoever wants to help, and we can draft a letter with your help, because this is obviously your expertise, and you and your wife. And thank you very much. I would encourage all of us to move quickly on this one.
Okay. Questions, comments?
So I had a
Councilmember
question.
Geringer?
Question for Vice Mayor Kandel. Well, actually, because I was going to ask Michael, the Gas Safety Task Force is still meeting, or that's the meeting that got canceled tomorrow, or is that a meeting with the Spring Hill Homeowners Association? And
The Gas Safety Task Force meets informally, and then we are going to go in front of the Lafayette City Council November 12th, I believe it is. The meeting that was canceled was the Alliance, and that is the meeting of the city, the task force,
Right.
CPUC, and PG&E. And Ms. Kandel's right, it was PG&E who canceled that meeting.
Okay, but it is that coalition of people, so I didn't.
Correct.
I didn't
Yeah,
add the
thank you.
alliance
Right.
onto the
Clarification,
end.
yes.
Okay, and so I would encourage us to also follow up on why we're canceling meetings and not having the responses, recognizing that there were a lot of other communications snafus and things happening last week, but I would encourage us to follow up and see where these are, particularly if we're canceling meetings.
Okay, other comments? Councilmember Burks.
So thank you very much, Mr. Dawson, and to our Vice Mayor as well for your engagement on this. It struck me a few weeks ago that over the last 3 years I've been on the council, our engagement with PG&E has primarily been with Mr. Garino, with Tom Garino, who, from what I understand, is not an executive. He's a very nice man, but he is a mid-level public relations manager who has represented a multi-billion-dollar company in front of us on very serious matters. And I think that needs to change. I think our engagement with PG&E, at least in this forum, should be with decision makers at an executive level. And frankly, the next time Mr. Garino comes, in my personal opinion, I won't even look at him. I'm not going to engage the guy because, there's been a proven track record here of non-decision makers coming in front of us, usually not having, a third of the answers of the questions that we've asked. And it has become truly a farce. So I would say we ratchet it up. Thank you, Mr. Dawson, and to Gina as well, and to the Vice Mayor.
And just for all fairness, PG&E
just gonna
has
say-
given us.
I was going to
access-
clarify that, and why don't
Yeah,
you let
you've
me
been there,
do that
Mike.
after we get done with questions. Any other questions? Councilmember Bliss, do you have a comment or question?
Not of the speaker. I think we'll probably get to this, and this might be what the city attorney's going to interject with, but I would be interested in finding out the process by which we could agendize this to actually take action.
Yes, that was
on-
exactly what I was.
Because I would absolutely be interested in putting on a future agenda the idea of sending a letter to PG&E as has been described by the Vice Mayor and by Mr. Dawson.
Okay, and we do have that on our agendas. There's a time when we can discuss that formally, so that's a good next step. But I did want to address the concerns about who's being represented at the meetings. The task force and the alliance does have some very credible people.
Absolutely.
Who are
I'm aware of
engineers,
that, yeah.
who've done a great job, I think, of trying to understand what we're concerned about and to turn that into technical language. The CPUC is also represented there. So the regulator's there, and you have the utility. Now, with that kind of in one corner, this is now a different issue. This is something where it was brought up by the Dawsons, we have exposed pipeline. We haven't gotten a response back, so I think we can address that later on. But I think you have to remember that they have not been totally stonewalling us, or just giving us PR, because we have gotten a lot of good time out of some pretty reputable folks from that firm, or the utility, as well as CPUC.
And that's why I'm concerned now, because I'm seeing that mode of communicating with them has changed very quickly with the exposed pipeline.
So I know we're going to
Yeah, I was just
I
going
know we're
to
gonna do this, but I want to make one comment, and it can be public if you'd like me to frame it that way. There's 100 and some odd people here that don't show up at these meetings where I know we do have credible representatives at. My point is, I'd like to see them here in front of our public, representing themselves in front of the community. So I'll stop there.
Okay, and I appreciate that. We can arrange that if necessary. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Gillum? And that is my last request to speak under public comment.
Okay. Good evening, council members. Jeffrey Gilman, 753 Old Jonas Hill Road. I'd like to read a prepared statement. In the buildup and aftermath of last week's PG&E power shutdown, there's been a lot of bad-mouthing of PG&E's actions as well as those of public agencies. I'm not here to apologize for PG&E. However, the planned power outage last week was a well-conceived and critically needed exercise. In terms of communication, PG&E and related Nixle notifications were provided about 48 hours and 24 hours before the initially stated start of the power shutdown in our area, and updates were provided as we got closer to that start. Further updates were given that announced the delay of the power shutdown based on weather conditions. The actual power outage, which in Lafayette was about 8 hours, corresponded to the most critical period of windy, dry weather conditions. I monitored those weather conditions, and average wind speeds got up to 18 miles per hour with higher gusts. Relative humidity got as low as 12%. Air temperatures were in the low 70s. To place this in perspective, I calculated what's called the absolute humidity, which is the actual moisture content in the air at those conditions. And with that same moisture content and a temperature of 89 degrees like it was at midday in Death Valley today, the relative humidity would have been 6.9%. The actual relative humidity in Death Valley today was 6%. So last week's critical conditions in Lafayette were equivalent to one of the driest places on the earth. And Death Valley does have high winds. I tried camping there one night. The difference is that Death Valley is not suburban and it does not have dense vegetation. The power shutdown avoided a much greater catastrophe while providing a lot of lessons learned about how to be better prepared next time. These lessons included which cell phone service companies were reliable, the good reliability of old-fashioned AT&T landlines, what it takes to keep the Caldecott Tunnel open, and how to improve local communications. As stated by many, PG&E has for many years underinvested in the maintenance required to lessen the risks of sparking fires. It will take a change in company management, an increase in regulatory oversight, much additional investment, and time to improve their electrical distribution system. In the meantime, the power outage we experienced is the new normal, unfortunately, and we need to come together as a community to embrace and adapt to that reality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. Okay, would anyone else like to speak under public comment, an item that is not on our agenda but within the purview of the city? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the recognition of Lynn Hedane for 40 years of service. Woohoo! So Lynn, I know it was kind of tough putting this together so you could have you here. I know you're not liking sitting in the seat. You got your back and everything, but we're so glad you're here. And we're so glad that you're taking the time to be with us today. 40 years is a long time. And you have been an important part of the Circulation Commission. But I think more importantly, you've been an important part of circulating information throughout the community. I've known you for a while. I remember before there was email, you would get a telephone call. And then someone invented email, and I thought, Lynn is gonna love this. And sure enough, everybody was connected. We rely on you, we need you, stay with us, keep us whole. We love you. I have a proclamation here, but I think there's a few other folks who might want to say a few words before we get into that. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay. Carl DiGiorgio.
I'm Carl DiGiorgio of Green Tree Court and have the pleasure of serving on the Transportation and Circulation Commission with Lynn, as well as the Lafayette Homeowners Council. And what's great about Lynn is she's so involved, as you're saying, Mayor. She's great at raising our collective communications in this town, not only on local issues, but also, as you know, her concerns with many of these statewide developments that have happened over the last year. I just wanted to say that in addition to Lynn, we should also be thanking Dave for always helping her with what she's doing. And we gave a note to Lynn tonight just to say we really appreciate your combination of historical perspective and well as forward-looking community-based action. Thanks for all your hard work and all these years, and we look forward to having you help us in the future.
Rob Sturm.
Rob Sturm, 3343 Oak Court. I too want to say a few words in joinder of celebrating Lynn Hedane and her more than 4 decades of volunteer service to our community. Lynn has been such a dear friend and wonderful resource for me, my family, and the city of Lafayette. Our community is incredibly fortunate to have someone with Lynn's wealth of community knowledge, care, and pragmatism, doggedly leaning in to each and every day to improve our city. Reasonable minds cannot help but deeply admire and respect Lynn's tenacity and tireless approach to keeping community leaders and residents informed on the issues of the day. Lynn is our Paul Revere with the writing style of Charles Dickens, who I will note, legend has it, was paid by the word. In a time when so many people suffer from social and civic deafness and malaise, I can only hope that when I reach Lynn's age of youth, that I'm even half as rugged, fearless, committed, and attuned to doing good work and working to do good within my community. Thank you, Lynn.
Avon Wilson.
Okay.
My name is Yvonne Wilson. I have lived at 14 Rochelle Court for 50 years. I have known Lynn Hedane for 49. I came to Lafayette with the intent that I would be a nice suburban housewife, look after my house, decorate, look after the children, landscape. And then one day, my daughter came home from school on the bus with this little boy. And his name was David. And I said, young man, I used to be a school teacher, young man, does your mother know you're here? And he said, oh, no. And I said, well, shouldn't we call her? Oh, she won't care. Well, I took him home eventually and met his mother, who was a smashing-looking redhead, and had this rather, sophisticated indifference to raising children and whatnot. But she had this way of probing people and finding out what I had done with my life. She was setting me up.
Yes.
The next thing I knew, she wanted to be me to be her co-room mother. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. I have plans. Well, the next thing I knew, she wanted me to help her with a little project. The little project was bicycle lanes. She had come home from a 3-year stint in Holland, where Dave was assigned representing Bechtel. And they had facilities for bicycles, and she was terrified for her children. I was terrified for mine, because they had to walk on Relief Station Road to get to the bus stop. Well, the next thing I knew, I was up to here in measuring streets, going to city council meetings, writing reports, reading reports. She was the one, though, that went out into the community. She nailed people. She got information. She soaked it all up and put it all together. And then started the campaign, and she planned it all out. We went to meetings. We went to the city council meeting. We went to the Walkways Commission meeting. We went to other meetings. The end of it is that we did make a presentation to the city council. She did all of the research, and I did all of the math. And it was interesting. Her husband was a numbers man. My husband was an engineer. We reversed roles. And we made this big dramatic presentation. And one of the council members, when we finished, looked at us and said, "Did you write this yourselves, girls?" Oh. You wouldn't do that now.
No.
Well, I have to say, we both wore bouffant hairdos, and we wore mini skirts. And when the council approved the system of bikeways, one of the council members said, "Well, they came in with their mini skirts and we gave them everything they asked for." Well, as you can see, we don't wear mini skirts anymore. She has transformed this city. She is the true embodiment of government of the people, by the people, for the people. She will always be that way. She cares deeply. She's more than a friend. She is a neighbor, and she is our champion. And I love her dearly.
Okay, Ellen Rientis. And this is my last request to speak.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Ellen Reinches, and I reside with my husband, Don Tatson, at 1114 Orchard Road. And you'll notice he's not here tonight because he's rehearsing with the Walnut Creek Concert Band. But these are more or less joint remarks. So we feel privileged to address you and Lynn Hedane on the occasion of her 40-year anniversary of service to the citizens and the city of Lafayette. And to echo Mayor Anderson, that is a long time. During those 40 years, Lynn has been a highly talented member of the city's Circulation Commission, not to mention many other civic involvements. She knew the detail of what came before the commission, and if she could not find the answer to a question in printed material, Lynn was happy to call people around the state, if not the nation, to obtain what she needed. Lynn knew about grant opportunities and occasionally suggested a funding source for a project before staff even knew about it. She knew about changes in how level of service was calculated and which method was more accurate in Lafayette. Now we expect she will become the expert in the new metric of vehicle miles traveled. Okay, Lynn's involvement went well beyond the Circulation Commission. She was active with Lafayette Forward as they promoted good government in Lafayette. She probably has never seen a local campaign in which she did not have an opinion and for which she was not working hard for a preferred candidate. As secretary of the Homeowners Council for many years, she helped make that group an advocate for good government. Lynn exemplifies good citizen involvement. Lafayette is fortunate to have her, and Don and I are even more fortunate because we call Lynn and Dave among our friends. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other public comments before I bring it back to the council, and then we'll present the proclamation to Ms. Hedane? Vice Mayor Kendall.
Hi. Lynn Hedane, you are my favorite. I just adore you. I enjoy you so much. I was on a trail in the rocks in Sedona this weekend, and we're on the phone talking about the closed crosswalk on Mount Diablo Boulevard. And I'm trying to explain to my family, my friends that I'm hiking with, it's like, who is this? You're taking this call? Why are you taking this call? And I'm like, it's Lynn Hedane. I've got to talk to her because she's the heart and soul of Lafayette. And if she needs my help, I'm going to give it to her right now. And I will never, ever stop being your fan. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Geringer?
First of all, everybody who got up to speak actually captured Lynn in a much, much more personal and better way. And I loved Rob Sturm's comment on the paid by the word. I don't see where Rob is right now. But everyone here, if you're not on Lynn Hadane's mailing list, you need to be, because Lynn Hadane has the pulse on everything that is going on in the community. I have been on it through my years on the school board. Yes, Jeff, she's pointing to Jeff Heyman, but they are fabulous partners now, so that Lynn doesn't have to do all of the work on that. But Lynn has been a source of inspiration, information, and making sure that I knew everything that had been going on in the schools before I came along. That has been very helpful in making sure that I am paving the right path as I, have been on the city council. And so for all of those things, Lynn, and for your friendship, I very much appreciate you and look forward to seeing you here or getting my hardworking 5, 7, or 10 email when you have important information to share with us for many years to come.
Councilmember Bliss?
I won't try to match the eloquence of everyone that's gone before me. I would just echo everything that's been said in tribute to Lynn. But I will say, so I'll kind of offer just a quick anecdote that to me sums up what I absolutely love about working with Lynn. Other than just her great expertise and just her deep commitment to and love for our city, I've had the privilege of serving on the legislation committee for the city council, and during the last legislative session when a lot of these bills were in play around housing and land use issues, Lynn was deeply involved, of course, and a source of great expertise. And so during some of the weeks, there would be emails going back and forth constantly on these issues. And so there was one particular night coming down to the end of the legislative session, and it was almost every 4 or 5 minutes, Lynn and I were emailing back and forth on something. And then there's about a 5-minute pause, and I get an email, one last email from Lynn late in the evening, addressed just to me, not to the rest of the people that were on the chain. And so for a second, when I saw that, I got a little bit nervous, and all this email said, it was a 1-sentence email, and said, I meant to ask, do you prefer Stephen or Steve? And I just offer that because to me that sums up Lynn, which is that in the midst of doing incredibly important work for the city and really being entirely issues-driven, she is at the core someone who's entirely driven by relationships and respect for others and a true caring in those that she works with. So I thought that really summed that up. And Lynn, congratulations. You are truly a model for civic leadership and engagement in improving our community. And I'm really grateful to have this chance to have learned from you over the last several years. So thank you.
Councilmember Burks.
So yeah, on the legislative subcommittee, man, she is a bull in the china shop. You should have seen her with our lobbyists. I mean, it was like somebody gave her a shot of adrenaline, and it was just fantastic. And she knew everything in the room, I think more than anybody else, including our lobbyists. So that was a fantastic example. I've known Lynn for about 3 or 4 years now since I joined the city council. Pay by the word is accurate, but if you've ever had a book that you can't put down, that is Lynn's emails. I mean, I find myself reading and soaking up every single word of those until well into the night. So they're fantastic, they're informative, and they're always accurate, and they've got great ideas. I think you had one today. It was just a fantastic idea. What stood out to me the most with Lynn, and this is personal, We've spent a lot of time on email at night, well into the hours of the early morning, and she would often close the email or email thread or throughout the email thread, suggesting that I really spend more time with my family and with my kids, and it meant a lot because she articulated the importance of doing that at my age and still serving the community. But she did it in a way with real examples of her and Dave growing up, and it meant a lot to me. So thank you.
So Lynn, we're going to have you come up over here, and the proclamation basically says today is Lynn Hedane Day in Lafayette, California. So let's take some pictures.
Yes.
You get 2 minutes.
I see something silly.
What have you got there? Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I have to caution Cam because our daughter has still never quite forgiven me for all the time that I spent with the city of Lafayette. Truly. Yvonne's daughter was a little more philosophical, but I even heard from my daughter this morning, and she missed a great deal of her childhood, she feels. We don't see it that way, and her brothers don't see it that way, but she does. And so for her and for us, it's important. Just wanted to say my 40 years of adventures in Lafayette has meant so much to me. Thousands of challenges, wonderful friends, unsurpassed honor. Thank you all so very much. Thank you. We must have.
Thank you, Lynn and Dave, so very much. Really appreciate both of you. Okay, that brings us to Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission annual update. We have the commission here, or members of, yes. We won't bite.
They're making their way down.
Guaranteed.
Good evening. We're very happy to be here tonight and give you a presentation of what we've been doing this year and what our goals are for the coming year. And I'd like to introduce the members of the commission who are here. It's Lauren Herpich and Allison Hill and Peter Reed. And I'm Carol Singer. And we hope you enjoy our presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Where's Jonathan?
There we go.
Presenter.
Parks make life better, and the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission is making Lafayette better by supporting the PTR Department and the Lafayette Community Center Foundation in their efforts to provide parks, trails, and programs the community needs. This video will discuss some of the PTR Commission's 2018-19 accomplishments and discuss next steps that the Commission will take in 2019-20 and beyond. Arguably, the Commission's biggest achievement of 2018-19 is one that's been decades in the making, as the city was able to acquire nearly 20 acres of new parkland that had been identified in the Lafayette Open Space Plan, Trails Master Plan, Trails Implementation Plan, and the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan. Thanks to the hard work of the PTR Commission, the Open Space Committee, and the Lafayette City Council, and a partnership with the John Muir Land Trust, the city was able to acquire the batwing-shaped parcel between Sweet Drive and St. Mary's Road. The future park area, alive with wildlife that live among the tall oak trees and buckeyes, will provide new walkable trail opportunities in a central part of Lafayette. Master planning for the Community Nature Park will take place in the upcoming months. Anyone interested in participating in the process should contact the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Department. You can also follow PTR Commission activities by signing up for agenda updates at www.lovelafayette.org. In an effort to ensure that the city is in a position to capitalize on future opportunities similar to the Hamlin Nature Park, the PTR Commission is currently developing a parkland acquisition plan and an update to the Trails Master Plan. The Parkland Acquisition Plan will identify community parkland needs that have been identified by the public and in the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan, and contain an inventory of parcels that could be acquired to meet those needs. Beyond their work to maintain, inspect, and renovate Lafayette trails, the Lafayette Trails Subcommittee has been working on an update to the Trails Master Plan. The City of Lafayette currently maintains 9 miles of trail, many of which serve as valuable connectors to trails maintained by other entities. East Bay Regional Park District trail connections include connections to the Lafayette-Moraga Trail, Briones Open Space, and Alkalani's Ridge. East Bay Mud Trail connectors provide access to the recreational trails at the Lafayette Reservoir. And the La Miranda Loop provides a bicycle loop that connects all 3 cities. The current Trails Master Plan that was adopted in 2006 captures many great opportunities, but the Trails Subcommittee has identified several other trail opportunities that will lead to better connectivity for many Lafayette neighborhoods and an overall better Lafayette trail system. In an effort to increase awareness about La Miranda trails, the Trails Subcommittee worked with staff and neighboring communities to implement several new trail-friendly programs. The subcommittee developed a new trail marker standard that was reviewed and adopted by both the City of Orinda and Town of Moraga. The first new markers were installed as part of an Eagle Scout project that was supervised by the PTR Commission. Orinda, Moraga, and Lafayette Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission members worked together to develop a Tri-City Google Earth map for all La Miranda trails. The Trails Subcommittee developed a trail easement trifold brochure that helps property owners understand the benefits of dedicating trail easements. Staff and commission members from Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda worked together to develop the La Miranda Trails Challenge that invites participants to hike 26 miles of La Miranda trails or complete 5 objectives to earn a pin. The Trails Challenge pins were funded by a donation from the Lafayette Youth Commission. The 2018-19 was an outstanding year for the Recreation Department and the Community Center. Lafayette families reached out to the department to ask for after-school care as many on-site after-school programs were full with wait lists. The department answered by working with the Lafayette School District and the La Miranda School Bus Program to develop the After School Awesome program at the Lafayette Community Center. The addition of the After School Awesome program, combined with the department taking on after-school enrichment for all 4 elementary schools, along with steady growth in community engagement with ongoing programs and special events at the Lafayette Community Center, led to the department bringing in its highest all-time gross revenue of over $1.6 million. Revenue growth allowed the department to add an additional regular employee that will now oversee the After School Awesome program and serve as the director to the Camp Awesome program during the summer. 2019-20 Community Center improvement projects are coming along as the city is working with Allen Cross and Proto Inc. to develop a design plan for the Lafayette Community Center restroom renovation. The resurfacing of the multi-purpose rink has been completed. The sport card tiles at the rink were recycled and replaced with a surface that is similar to tennis court surface. The new surface will allow the city to offer pickleball, a need that was identified by the Lafayette Senior Service Commission as part of their age-friendly community initiative. Pickleball is similar to tennis but is played on a smaller court with paddles and a wiffle ball instead of rackets and tennis balls, making the sport more accessible for many ages and abilities. The Commission is excited to bring forward these projects as well as many others that are included in the Commission's 5-year capital improvement plan. This plan will help guide the Commission's recommendations to Council moving forward. The list of CIP projects includes the weatherization of the Roar entrance to the community.
Come on.
It's to the community park.
Of the Lee Creekside Park play structure improvements to existing field facilities at Lafayette Community Park and Buckeye Fields, the development of the Lane Trail, the structure was recently removed.
It's the Brook Street Park
The
play
Commission
structure
worked with
replacement.
state officials to grant $300,000 that will be used to replace the play structure.
It's the play structure at Brook Street Park that the city secured a $300,000 grant for, working with the state this year.
Green hills, great schools, beautiful parks, a vast trail system, and a thriving community center. The PTR Commission is proud of their work in the community and looks forward to developing more parks and programs.
Okay.
We'd like to thank our esteemed director, Jonathan, for his great video skills. If you ever need a presentation, I think you should hire him in another role also.
Okay. I thought you put that together, Carol, particularly the cuts on the music. I mean, it sounded like you know. I was with you. Any questions for the commission members? Councilmember Geringer?
First of all, This was my second time getting to see it because I have the honor of serving on the Parks, Trails, and Recs as one of our liaisons, and I don't get to every meeting, but I did happen to be able to attend that one. And so thank you all for the work that you do. Shout out again on bringing the request for grants to grant to Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer Cahan and getting that money so that Brook Street Park can go forward. I did want to just follow up, and I mean, there was this great presentation, and in looking at the fields, we know that we've been seeing some things in the news about visitors, and I didn't know if this was an appropriate time to ask for just a quick update on our wild pig invasion or wars.
So as of right now, we are working closely with Fish and Wildlife. They advised that we put up the temporary fencing that we put in place. We got the temporary fencing up. After a few minor adjustments, we have managed to keep the pigs off the fields. They did move on to the grass that was next to the play structure. They decimated that piece of grass, but then have moved on and haven't hit any other areas of the field. So right now, the play surface is safe inside its fenced area, and we are beginning the restoration process on that. We are also obtaining quotes for an upgraded, more permanent fencing to go around the facility.
Thank you. And just one last thing, kudos and thank you for putting in place Camp Awesome and partnering with the school district to make sure that we have after-school care for the students that need it, and for building your program and having that huge revenue growth on that side as well. So thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Kendall?
Wonderful presentation. Good job. Wow, what a great year. I can't believe it. So with the Camp Awesome, that is obviously hugely successful. Just a question is there like a waiting list? Do you guys are you guys thinking about expanding, or is this it? Or are we good?
There is a wait list at this point. We did expand last year, since last year. So this is our second year of ASA. We took an additional 20 kids this year. We are looking at ways to expand within our space of the community center, and we're also we're looking at smart growth and what we can do with the schools. We're already offering after-school enrichment at all 4 elementary schools. But we're working closely. We have a brand new assistant coordinator that came on board with Jamie Renetti, who is such a valuable resource to us and the team. And we're just looking at smart growth and the community need. And from what we can see, there's a wait list at just about every after-school care right now. So we're looking at ways to help with that demand and just looking at smart growth within the department.
Yeah, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but I think that's a great segue in talking about how to think outside the box and maybe look at other opportunities, especially for downtown LES students, as well as students in Spring Hill and Happy Valley as well. So for kids who can't get to the community center through the busing system. So let's look at some downtown opportunities.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councilmember Bliss?
Just a comment, really. Just want to echo the thanks for all the great work. I think we've heard reports throughout the year, and I think this video really nicely sums up that the commission has made really significant progress this year and really made some very concrete improvements to the city. I want to particularly acknowledge, of course, the work on the Batwing property and working with John Muir Land Trust on that. That's going to be a beautiful resource for our city for generations to come, and also the work on the Brook Street Park and securing the funding for that. So I think people that live in Lafayette understand there's a huge opportunity here to expand access to park facilities for families and children, but really for everybody. And I think seeing those 2 particular wins this year, I think has been really huge for our city. So thank you for all your great work, and looking forward to seeing what you do in the coming year.
Yeah, on the Batwing, I think we achieved 50% of the overall goal of the plan, all in one swoop. Just a great partnership with the John Muir Land Trust. So great job. Are dogs going to be allowed on the Batwing with leashes or without leashes?
That is all part of the upcoming master planning process. So we will be working closely with the neighborhood to look at the use on the property. It will be a nature park, and we will be working with the John Muir Land Trust, who currently does use a policy similar to the East Bay Regional Park District that does allow off-leash within a certain distance on the trails within the park. So we'll be working with them and discussing that as part of the master planning process coming up.
Great. Wonderful job. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate all your efforts and looking forward to this coming year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're on to the consent calendar. Do I have any items that council members would like to see pulled for later discussion? Councilmember Geringer?
Do I have to pull it to acknowledge the certificate of award for the excellence in financial reporting, or may I just say congratulations and kudos to our fabulous staff, and congratulations on getting that award?
You can't do that.
I can't? Darn.
Okay. Is there anything from the public in terms of items that would be preferred to be pulled?
Right. I think Jonathan has one.
Oh, that's right. We have one other.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at my thing here.
F.
F, yes. We're going to pull 7F.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll discuss that later.
So I'll move all the rest of the items.
Okay, so I think what we're talking about are items 7A, B, C, and D. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And we will bring item 7F back later in the agenda. Okay, with that, we'll move on to staff reports. Approval of City of Lafayette's Green Infrastructure Plan.
Good evening, council members. My name is Matt Luttrup. I'm the Engineering Services Manager. And I won't read the whole Green Infrastructure Plan to you because that would take
It is
all-
very long.
It is very, very long.
Yes.
Essentially what the Green Infrastructure Plan is it's a plan that the city and all the cities in the area are required to develop as part of our municipal regional permit for discharge of waters into creeks, streams, and ultimately the bay. And this is part of the Federal Clean Water Act. The idea behind it is that with green infrastructure, you can filter out PCBs, mercury, sediments, all sorts of pollutants that traditionally have gone straight into the bay. So the idea is you want to discharge these polluted waters, if you will, over landscaping or into bioretention type facilities so that those pollutants have a chance to soak into the ground and be broken down by vegetative process. So plants and animals and organisms in the soils will break down the pollutants. So it's kind of a, we're moving away from the traditional capture and convey systems with stormwater to a greener, cleaner version of stormwater processes. So the Green Infrastructure Plan is just that. It's a plan for how we're going to try to capture more of the runoff from impervious surfaces in our community and treat that runoff. The Green Infrastructure Plan is the first step in trying to treat water from city properties, such as our roads, parking lots, things of that nature. Our past permit was primarily focused on what do you do when people redevelop a property? So you may have noticed when people build a new Safeway or something, they put green infrastructure in. That's kind of the easy part of taking care of redevelopment type green infrastructure. Now they're wanting us to look at how do you retrofit existing city facilities to capture stormwater. So that's what this plan is about. We don't have funding for most of this at this point in time. So what we say in the Green Infrastructure Plan is here are the projects that we would like to do if funding becomes available. We only have one project that is going to be constructed next year, and that is a bioretention or rain garden project at the intersection of First Street and Golden Gate Way. We're building a little park that has bioretention facilities in that area. So I think those are kind of the highlights of it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions, Matt? All right, I was just kind of wondering, a lot of these state-driven or federal-driven regulations end up being kind of unfunded mandates. And I guess at this point, there's really no hammer. There's no one really claiming that we have to perform at a certain level. But is that something that you see coming to us? And if it is, what's our options in terms of actually meeting some of these goals?
I do see that coming towards us, and at the meetings that I've attended for Clean Water Program, there are lots of ideas as to how it can be done, perhaps imposing a surcharge on development or on the residents of the community, kind of like what we do for our stormwater fee, although that one can't be touched at the moment. But perhaps there's a way to derive additional funds for doing these types of projects using those mechanisms. But I think all of the cities kind of have the same feeling about that we have, which is we're trying to take care of the must-haves right now, which is, you know, maintaining our roads so that we can drive on them and do things like that. We would love to do the green infrastructure projects, but we need some help with the funding. So I believe that's what we are going to be trying to pursue with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is letting them know that's great that you have these mandates, but could you please help us with some sort of revenue stream, some grants that don't have lots of strings attached. Because Mike Moran and I are finding that quite a few of the grants that we would like to go after, not just for clean water, have disadvantaged community portions to the grant. So we immediately lose out on at least 10% of the potential scoring that we could get because we're not a disadvantaged community.
Well, let me just remind you, we do have a lobbyist now, and I think that you should kind of give them a heads up on these issues because that's where it's going to come from. And if they see something rolling our direction, maybe they can either give us a heads up or help us turn it into something that's positive instead of being kind of a penalty. Because, you know, ultimately it's just more tax, and no one wants to go there. So let's get those guys involved in this thing. That would be really good, I think. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to public comments. Any other questions from the council? Okay, public comment. Lynn? I think your microphone is off there. Check it there.
Push a button?
There you
Yeah.
go.
I'm sort of a technology dunce.
It's your day, Lynn. You can do whatever you want.
Doesn't matter, okay.
That's right.
I was just thinking that you might be able to make a case, in a sense, for a disadvantaged community if you spoke with Narup and Tracy. It's quite possible that due to our status with reduced, what shall we call it, subventions, that come back to our city that are different from other cities. The proportion is different, the percentage is different. You might be able to make a case on a piece of paper and the application that Lafayette does not get the funding that other cities do. And they should, out of our property taxes. It's not fair. It hasn't been fair ever since we recognized the problem about 40 years ago. And it might just pass muster when you apply for a grant. Thank you.
Okay, question for the speaker? Thank you, Lynn. Jeffrey Gilman?
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Gilman, 753 Old Jonas Hill Road. I'm here representing the Creeks Committee on this item, and I just want to underscore the great working relationship we have with the City Public Works and Engineering Department. We're definitely, fully in support of green infrastructure, and I think, as you heard, it's only money that is preventing us from doing more. We have provisions, policies in the general plan, in the downtown design guidelines, and our downtown creeks plan that all speak to doing green infrastructure, rain gardens, but the project that Matt mentioned at First Street and Golden Gate Way, that is a grant-funded project. The lion's share of that $200,000 comes from a grant. Before the meeting tonight, I asked Matt, well, what about the BART station parking lot? That's a great example of green infrastructure. And he said, well, we can't take advantage of it. It's not technically in the city of Lafayette. But that, that's something to be aware of. I don't know what we can change to take advantage of it, because the stormwater from there flows the same place it does from Lafayette. And I do know that for that project, BART did receive a grant from the regional board. So something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question for the speaker? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council, and we have a resolution for your consideration.
Yes, I'm trying to find or read it.
Councilmember Gallagher.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2019-50 approving Lafayette's green infrastructure plan.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And is unanimous. Matt, thank you very much for your work on this. Good report. All right. Go find that money. Okay, Chief. Creating a Lafayette Police Department canine program.
All right, here we go. First off, I apologize on the staff report. Made about 2 or 3 different spelling errors that were not acceptable to me, but I was writing it during the PSPS event last week when you were building up for the actual power shutdown, so I do apologize. This is a project that's been on my mind for the last year. Every year, Art and Wine Festival, we always do explosive detection sweeps prior to letting the public in. And last year, Pittsburgh PD supported us by allowing us to use their dog, and again this year in doing that. And it opened my eyes to another model of police canine out there it's growing in interest, and I think will continue to grow, especially in the Bay Area. As I go into this, I'll explain that a little bit more. Currently, we do not have a canine program, and the goal tonight is to pitch to you, if you will, bringing back a canine program, specifically a dual-purpose explosives detection canine. So when we talk about dual-purpose explosives detection canines, you hear dual purpose a lot. The first part, usually in dual purpose in law enforcement, is tracking and apprehension. And your tracking is being able to locate individuals, whether it's a missing kid, a missing adult, maybe someone with a medical need that's wandered off and we need to find them, all the way to tracking or locating a suspect in a felony crime. And it can be used to apprehend and allow us to use a less lethal option in apprehension if need be. The second part of dual purpose had typically been narcotics in the past. That was the prior canine program we had here at Lafayette PD, and that's the dual purpose canine program we see in a lot of agencies right now. And as you've seen in the state of California over the last several years, we've either legalized or decriminalized a lot of different drug offenses. And because of that, and with the continued concern with active shooter, active threat, public event security, et cetera, I think you're going to start seeing more of dual purpose, with the second part being explosives detection versus narcotics detection. The locating of suspected explosive materials, and obviously the goal is protecting human life and public safety. Going on to some of the things that an explosive detection canine can detect, there's about 25 to 27 different scents that they do train on. Here's just a snapshot. I am not the technical expert. I had to look up a lot of those. But basically anything that goes into building a bomb, there's always different chemical components that exist if you're wanting to detonate something, if you're wanting to build an explosive device. The other win with an explosive detection dog is they also train to detect gunpowder, gun oil, and gun residue. And for example, the Pittsburgh Police Canine has been very successful in locating firearms, whether out in the public or whether in the back of someone's car in a secure trunk, pulling out illegal firearms. And that was one of the biggest things that drew my interest to this, was when you look at active shooter, active threat, and enhancing our ability within our police department to grow and to keep our community more safe. A couple things real quick before I move on to the costs associated with it. When I first brought this project up, Danville Police Department was in the process of securing a new canine, part of their canine program. And the chief there, as you know, is another contract city similar to Lafayette. They were so excited about this program that they actually suspended their canine program to be able to transition it to explosive detection. Currently in the county, there are only 2 other dogs that I know of that are trained in this manner, and Pittsburgh PD has both of them. BART PD does have explosive detection dogs, Alameda County, and as you go to your airport, you'll see a lot of those labs and different types of dogs. Those are single purpose, only for explosive detection, not allowing you to do tracking and apprehension, but only locating explosive devices. So having the dual purpose option really expands our capabilities, where we can use it for a variety of things, while also enhancing public safety here. The thing that really drove this in my time and over the last year was looking at sort of 3 tenets: public safety, public event safety, school safety, and religious institution safety. If you look at active shooter, active threat incidences, a lot of them do also happen in businesses, but those 3 other locations are high on the list. Right now, we only use an explosive detection dog at our Art and Wine Festival because it is an outside assist request. And for example, Alameda County has gotten so inundated with requests, they're now charging to do requests outside their own county. The demand has grown for this, and I'm excited about the opportunity for us to be on the sort of cutting edge of this, especially looking with the priority that we as a community, you as the city council and our community, places on school safety, the public event safety. As you saw with the Art and Wine over the last month, we definitely ratcheted a lot of things up in response to incidences that happened in the nation and in our state. If you noticed, we had 4 police canines in deployment on Sunday and 4 on Saturday and 5 on Sunday. All those dogs were trained in explosive detection, which includes gunpowder, gun oil, gun residue, i.e. guns. Just looking at the ways that we as a police department can continue to expand and grow our capabilities, while understanding the costs associated with us requesting additional officers. So how can we grow our capabilities financially responsibly or fiscally responsibly, and try to continue to enhance that? When we looked at the cost projection, I apologize for those in the audience. Anyone has questions afterwards, I'm happy to answer them. The graph on this does not come out as good as it does in the staff report. There are several costs associated with starting a canine program. In the initial setup costs, if you look in your staff report, several of the larger costs, i.e. a vehicle, were already outlined in our fiscal 19-20 budget. So those are costs that are already existing or will be paid with our current budget. I can go through a list of items, or I can just sort of highlight. To get this thing up and running is about $70,000. Your big cost is purchasing of the canine. The training of the canine is 3 months of training, 1 month of tracking apprehension, 2 months of EOD training. You also have the setup of getting the kennel, and the dog does live with the officer. And there's several costs associated there. Two of the biggest costs, as I mentioned, one is the vehicle, one is the overtime associated with backfilling out officer while they're in training. Those two costs will be covered with our current fiscal year budget through doing savings in other areas. And the other goal was using the Lafayette Police Foundation, which I'll discuss on the next slide, to provide funding for the second part of that outfit. So the goal is the Lafayette Police Foundation would fund $33,000 and that the city of Lafayette would approve me in using my current fiscal year budget to fund the overtime for backfill, which becomes basically a 50-50 split on that initial cost. There is a monthly cost associated, and that has to do with ongoing training. This dog does need to go through training along with the officer on a monthly basis to stay current and effective. Again, those are costs that potentially will be absorbed and paid for by the Lafayette Foundation or through the current fiscal year budget, with potential in years to come, if the foundation couldn't cover monthly costs, that it would become a line item in my budget for future. The goal would always be for other ways to pay for it, but just the reality is that the monthly costs may not always be funded. So moving to the next slide, when I came up with this idea last year, I didn't know how I'd bring it to fruition. And earlier this year, I had residents in town reach out to me and say, hey, we would like to support you with the Lafayette Police Department. Is there anything you need or anything we could help with? And this really started the pathway towards forming a 501c3 called the Lafayette Police Foundation. We have filed. We currently have our tax ID, and so our official status is the Lafayette Police Foundation as a nonprofit corporation, currently pending its 501c3 status. We're opening a checking account and banking account with Mechanics Bank on Monday of next week, and currently already have about $10,000 in donations earmarked for the canine program if it's approved to move forward. I've already received commitments from other individuals in the community that would get us at least halfway, if not more, without us even having set up a checking account, which is really gracious and just an awesome thing to have in your community. The goal of the Lafayette Police Foundation is not just to fund a canine program. It also allows us to expand our capabilities in other areas. Some of the things I've already talked about with Superintendent Whitmore at our elementary schools is ways that we can bring in additional training for our teachers and not, I realize we have our LPI and they do all that work that they do, but from a public safety standpoint, can the police department and the Lafayette Police Foundation continue to grow and enhance our ability within our school sites for active shooter, active threat scenarios? And there's several things that we have on the horizon. So the goal with the foundation was not to make it a one-trick pony, if you will, and just fund a canine, but to have potential to grow in the future if we do receive the support from the community. Before I close with this part, I did meet with our city manager, Narup Srivatsa, and Tracy Robinson, and discuss this program, discuss the outline of the costs associated, also how my goal was to have the foundation bring in essentially half of the initial setup costs. I received their support in doing so and then brought it to our public safety subcommittee on the Friday of Art and Wine Festival, which is a busy Friday. We did receive their support from Councilman Brooks and Bliss, and our goal is now to bring this to full council for your approval. One of the questions is, how do you bring the canine into the program? Am I asking for an extra cop, or what am I asking for? This canine would be assigned to a current Lafayette police officer that would go through a selection process internally. They would be assigned to a day shift so that it would benefit our schools primarily during the daytime hours, and also when we have a lot of businesses open and things of that nature. And also a lot of our special events are held during daytime hours, whether it's the weekend, and so that's a perfect shift for them. When you talk about training and policies, as a contract city of the Sheriff's Office, we do fall underneath their Canine Sheriff's Office policies. It's a part of the larger Sheriff's Office canine program. So just as we benefit from them having narcotics detection dogs, they actually have electronics detection dogs. They have one of those currently. And so we'd be not only enhancing our city, but it is a benefit to them. But we also do fall underneath that umbrella of training and policies. And we do a lot of training with their program. And we've received initial approval from the executive team on that side to move forward with a new model of dog. So that's it. And any questions?
Okay, are there any questions from the council? The subcommittee want to make any comments? I mean, the chief kind of wrapped it up, if you'd like to.
No, I just, I think it was a great summary, laid out the capital expenses very well. I think it was very innovative on the foundation idea, and the chief's garnered support from the community for some of the upfront capital costs. I think, we saw what the resource brought to bear for art and wine, which I think gave a lot of folks comfort. I think this is a tremendous asset for our school district, and both school districts, to have a tremendous resource. And I personally feel absolutely worth the expense to start this program now, and have full confidence in the chief to lead it forward. I know there are several officers that were excited and put in for the opportunity to be the handler, but so that shows you the excitement within the police department to make this program a success. So I am 100% behind it. I think it will create a whole new level of public safety in this community.
Yeah, as mentioned, just to build on that a little bit, as mentioned, this was brought to the Public Safety Subcommittee, similar presentation, and I supported it at that stage, and I think it represents, as the staff report lays out, the way that the use of canine capabilities has really evolved in the last several years to reflect the changing risks and potential threats and safety concerns facing our communities. I think represents a really important strategic direction for the city. And to me, the event safety, I think, has always been a key part of these sort of canine units, but the extent to which, as laid out in the staff report, it also really seriously addresses school safety, and also just given the number of faith organizations that we have located in Lafayette, potential safety at those organizations as well, to me, seem like a really solid investment of public funds in this capability. And also, I want to commend the chief and his colleagues for the creative work in thinking about this foundation as an avenue for supporting part of this. And I also want to thank, not necessarily by name at this point, but thank the many community members that came forward already to offer their financial support to this going forward.
Okay, good. All right. Any public comment on this item? Thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. I assume there'll be a motion from the subcommittee.
I would go ahead and motion, let me read it.
It's a receive and file, yeah, it's not really.
I
Was it receive and
wondered,
file?
why is it receive and file?
On the agenda, it's to direct the chief to proceed with a Lafayette Police Department K-9 program.
Do you need a motion for that, or just direction?
Well, let's make it a motion, because I think we're
Okay.
going to be expending some funds. It's going to change some of our budget allocations. So let's make it formal on our side.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make the motion. Let me just get this right here. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we direct Chief Aldred to proceed with a Lafayette Police Department K-9 program.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Chief, go forward. Sounds good. Thank you.
Or to bringing him to a future, or him or her, whatever the dog is.
Yeah, let's be straight on that now. Come on.
Look forward to bringing him to a future city council meeting in the early beginning of the year, so thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you. Okay, our next item is a public hearing, and we're going to take a break to allow staff to set up for this meeting. We'll take 5 minutes, and we'll go on to item 10A. 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Is there supposed to be? I don't know.
The way it was designed.
Was that? Oh.
The way it was designed was good.
Okay, while we're breaking, there is cake for the special occasion of Lynn Hedane Day in the city of Lafayette. So let's get some cake. It's cake. It's cake. Cake in the lobby.